Terrifier 2, bigger, bloodier, but is it better? Time to find out. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nightmare Collective. I'm Chris. Thanks for stopping by and watching my review for Terrifier 2. So like I said in my intro, bigger, bloodier, but does that make it better? That's what we're here to discuss, and we're here to find out. Does this sequel surpass its original, basically, concept? So the first movie for me is basically like a proof of concept. There's not a lot there for me. Yes, art is cool, his design is cool, all the effects are cool, but it's mainly just kill, 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 kill. There's not a lot of story. Yes, we have a central character, but other than that, we're not following that character throughout the whole movie. So for me, it doesn't really work. And before you dislike and comment everything down below, I think that movie's fine. I'm not saying that movie is bad, and I'm not saying that you are bad for liking that movie or enjoying that movie. I can see why people like that movie, but for me, I do need a little more story in my slashers, so that's why it didn't fully work for me. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, it's just not a movie I would revisit over and over and over. Now, let's get into the sequel. The sequel picks up basically directly after Art has been killed and he is resurrected for some strange reason. We don't know why. We basically just pick up with him in this type of lab thing where he was. He's got his trash bag and there's a dude in there and he just, you know, for all intents and purposes, fucks that dude up. There's a lot of that in this movie. He's just brutally fucking people up. So be prepared for that. If you've never seen the first one, I mean, I don't know why you'd be watching this sequel if you've never seen the first one. Go watch that so at least you know what you're getting into. But damn, this sequel is like bloody as hell and it's super gory, man. Now, I do think they play up the dark humor better in this movie than they did in the last one, but I was also worried going in that this movie is almost twice the length of the first one, and I'm like, okay, you didn't really give me anything in like 83 minutes, what are you gonna give me in 138 minutes, you know? But I will say, and I'm happy to say, you know, I have to eat crow a little bit because I was worried that I was not going to like this. I didn't go in wanting to hate this movie, but I am here to say, I'm going to eat a little bit of my words that I did enjoy. Damien Leone did a great job of expanding art and giving me personally what I wanted. Now, you may just be in this for the gore. If you're a gore hound, if you like that carnage, then this is your bread and butter. You're going to love the hell out of this movie. And you may not need story, but for me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I needed something to latch onto and to follow because the kills just aren't enough for me. That is just not why I go to horror. So for me, I needed something to latch on to. And there was. Sienna is great in this movie, man. She is a great protagonist. She is a great final girl. And I think everything that she brings elevates this movie. And I liked it more because of her. I could latch onto her character and I really felt for her and I wanted her to succeed throughout this movie. I was like, yes, I want you to kick the shit out of Art, man. I want this confrontation at the end. And that's the good thing. That's what people like about Halloween. We like that confrontation between Laurie and Michael. It gives us a central person to focus on that can pull us through the movie. And this replicates that a little bit, is that we get Sienna and we're able to follow her and her mother and her brother Jonathan. And we get to just follow them throughout this movie. And so that for me works a hell of a lot more than it did in the first one. So I will say, let's get into my overall positives first. I do have some criticisms. They're minor, but I do hope they are somewhat addressed going forward. So we'll get into that into the latter half of this video. I don't want to make this video overly long. This will not be 138 minutes long, but let's get into my positives. I think Art for me works a lot better here. I think he's funnier here, and I think the situations he is in are better than they were in the first one. We get more real world situations of Art being involved, and that's what I wanted. You know, Art being creepy in a laundromat is way funnier than Art being creepy in like an abandoned warehouse where you would expect him to be creepy. So I think that's where, like, I see why in the first one people somewhat called it like torture porn, because it really slightly was. It wasn't like a Saw, but you were just taking people to abandoned locations and basically torturing them, as opposed to like being in real world situations and then murdering people. That's Michael Myers gets that pass because he's not just like taking people to abandoned locations and then murdering them. He's just killing them along his path. And that's kind of what Art does. He's like, has this path he's on, and he's murdering people along the way. So it works as a cohesive story more than, like I said, than the first one does. So I really like that aspect of it. I really like the expanded nature of the mythos of Art and his character in the world. All of that works for me. So I do feel like there is some excess and some bloat in this movie. But like I said, this is not a negative because overall I did end up enjoying the movie. So I don't think its length is a negative. I just think it would be a better experience. So that's just my personal opinion, that I think if you tighten some things up, you would have a fucking amazing movie in this movie. So I know some of you would be like, oh no, I loved every minute. You may. I'm saying that's why I said it's not a negative for me. It's just something that's kind of in the middle for me. Now let's get into my criticisms. I do have one major criticism of this movie, and some of you may not have this criticism, but we set up a lot in this movie, and we get a lot of questions in this movie, and not a lot of them are answered. Really, none of them are. We don't know why Art is resurrected. Later on with Sienna's characters, a lot that happens, and we don't really get any answers from that. And so they set up a lot, but we don't even get answers to questions that we had in the first movie. And so I think that's my biggest criticism, is I wish we had gotten some answers, but instead we just got more questions. And I feel like that's not a great way to just like leave a sequel, is to be like, I know you didn't do a lot in that first one, so you got a lot to do here, but we just expanded, and then like questions after questions after questions I had when I left. I was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? You know, and that's just me. But that's the stuff that I wanted. I wanted some of that answered. I didn't need every little thing answered, but I needed some of it answered, and we didn't get that. So I'm hoping that the problem could come in the next movie if we don't get all that answered. If that's the final trilogy wrap-up that it's, you know, I'm assuming it's going to be, that's a lot to deal with in that movie. And I'm assuming, like, but we don't need another 3-hour movie. Like I said, that's the mixed aspect. So I don't necessarily want like a 3-hour, 3.5-hour Terrifier movie. I just want some of those questions answered, like I said, because a lot of this can be kind of nebulous, and I like that aspect of Art. But then again, you're opening a big can of worms, and you're kind of leaving it open, and none of it is really tangible, and none of it is answered. So like I said, that's my biggest criticism. You may have no problem with that. You may be like, sure, give me all the questions. I don't care. I'm just here for Art killing people. But for me, now that the story is expanded and we're following these characters along through the movie, I just wanted more answers than questions, which is what I got. So those are my criticisms. But overall, I really like this movie. And like I said, I'm not really getting too in-depth with it, because I think it's a movie you should just experience without having a lot of prior knowledge. I mean, all you need to know is that Sienna and her brother are basically your main characters. She's got 1 or 2 friends. I mean, of course, you know, they're gonna be gone, but they're there, so like they really don't matter. We do get a couple cameos in this movie, so if you really don't want to know about any of those, you can click off now. They're minor spoilers, so if you don't want to hear the cameos, you know, click off, wait about 30 seconds, and then you can unmute me or click back on. So we do get Felissa Rose in this as a principal, and that's pretty great. And we also get Chris Jericho towards the end of the movie, kind of capping it off. And so I thought those were pretty good cameos. They didn't pull me out of the movie or anything like that, but I think they were just funny to see, and they were pretty good. So overall, I really liked Terrifier 2. I thought it was a lot of fun. I didn't think it was as, you know, I wouldn't say exploitative, but I didn't think it was as mean-spirited as the first one, because we have a central character to follow along who is that antithesis to Art. We have somebody that we know might be able to confront Art at the end of this movie and kick some ass. And so I feel like instead of just getting brutal kills, we're getting those brutal kills, but we have somebody that is on the path in order to fight that evil that Art is. And so that's what I like about this movie. That's what it fixes for me about the first one. And so overall, I really like what they did. Like I said in my mixed review, I think they could tighten some stuff up in going forward. But other than that, I think it's a lot of fun. I think if you like the first one, you're really going to like the second one. If you like what I do, consider becoming part of the collective. So that's all I got. I've wasted enough of your time. Try and go see Terrifier 2. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a lot of bloody, brutal fun. And overall, like I said, a lot of it works for me way better than the first one. But until next time, don't forget, some doors should never be opened.